I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Greg, and I've been married to my wife, Lisa, for the better part of 7 years. At first glance, we had what seemed like a perfect life together. We met in college, both young and ambitious, and built our lives side by side. But lately, the cracks began to show in our seemingly perfect marriage, and I was too naive to notice until it was almost too late. The first signs were subtle. I noticed Lisa was coming home later and later from her evening runs, which she had started doing a few months back. She claimed it was to relieve stress from work as she transitioned into a managerial role at her company. I believed her, of course, but there was something in her voice, a defensiveness that I hadn't heard before, that made me uneasy. Then came the little things. Her phone became glued to her side. She'd often go into the bathroom to take calls, and when I would ask about her day, she seemed to change the subject. One evening, while we were eating dinner, I asked her if everything was okay. She looked at me, fork halfway to her mouth, and simply smiled, brushing off my concern as if I were overthinking things. She said I should be more trusting, that I was too paranoid. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, though it wasn't until a random Tuesday that the truth hit me like a brick. I came home early from work, planning to surprise her. I had picked up her favorite takeout and even bought a bottle of wine. As I walked inside, I noticed the living room was unusually quiet. The television was off, and the dim light coming from the bedroom caught my attention. I dropped the takeout on the kitchen counter and headed toward the bedroom. What I saw will forever be etched in my mind. Lisa was sprawled across the bed, giggling. And not alone. There was a guy, a tall, athletic-looking dude, leaning against the doorframe with a smug look on his face. My heart sank, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I stood there frozen, the takeout forgotten in my hand as I processed the scene in front of me. Her laughter abruptly stopped when she noticed me standing. There, eyes wide, mouth agape. "Greg, I can explain," she stammered, scrambling to sit up straight. The stranger shot me a glance, and I felt a surge of rage boiling within me. I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the room, anger pulsating through my veins. I could hear her calling my name, but I didn't want to hear her excuses. I wanted to scream, to break things, but I knew I had to keep my composure, at least for the moment. I ended up in the living room, pacing back and forth, trying to wrap my head around what just happened. Just moments ago, I had been excited to see my wife, and now I felt like my whole world had crumbled in front of me. I thought of all those evenings she had been out late, all the times I'd brushed aside my doubts and the trust I had placed in her. When I finally gathered my thoughts, I made my way back to the bedroom, ready to confront her. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking disheveled and remorseful. The guy had already slipped out, leaving only the tension behind. "Greg, please, I'm so sorry," she begged, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Sorry? Sorry for what? For betraying me?" I shot back, my voice dripping with anger. "What happened to trust, Lisa? What happened to us?" She sighed heavily and began spinning a web of excuses, how it was just a mistake, how she felt neglected, how she didn't mean for it to happen. Each word dripped with insincerity, and my heart hardened with every excuse she gave. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, but somehow a strange calmness washed over me as I realized I had been deceived. I never thought this would happen to me. I thought we were a team. But she had poisoned our relationship, and I was left to choke on the bitterness of her betrayal. At that moment, I knew I couldn't let this go unpunished. I needed to find a way to inject a little poison back into her plans, metaphorically, of course. But I would take my time. I needed to think about my next move carefully. The game was on, and I was ready to play. The days that followed the confrontation were blur. Lisa was quick to apologize and beg for forgiveness, but it felt like a hollow performance. She'd bring me coffee in the mornings, try to kiss me, and whisper sweet nothings, but I could only see the face of the man who had invaded our home. The trust was obliterated, and I was left with a heart full of contempt. Initially, I found myself teetering between the desire to give her a second chance and the urge to pack my bags and leave. But the thought of walking away felt like losing the battle. I started plotting, not just for revenge, but to regain my dignity. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions and understand the extent of the pain she had caused. While she was busy trying to play the dutiful wife, I started doing a little digging. I had always been the more tech-savvy partner, and I began scouring through her social media, texts, and emails when she wasn't around. I knew that if I were going to expose her infidelity, I needed solid proof, something that would shatter the facade she had built around her life. It wasn't long before I stumbled upon a thread of messages on her old laptop. They were exchanges between Lisa and the guy I had seen in our bedroom, a guy named Mark. As I read through the messages, my stomach churned with rage. They talked about secret rendezvous, shared fantasies, and how they couldn't wait for the next meeting. Each line was a dagger to my heart, and it fueled my resolve. I collected screenshots of their conversations, knowing I would use them at the right moment. I was building my case, and I wanted to ensure that when I confronted her again, she would have nowhere to run and no lies to hide behind. Meanwhile, I decided to play the part of the confused and heartbroken husband. I would nod and agree with her apologies, act like I was considering counseling, and give her the illusion of a chance to make things right. I started declining social invitations that would require us to be around friends, knowing it would give me more time to plan my revenge without interruption. During this time, I also reached out to some of my friends, sharing bits of my situation without revealing everything. I didn't want to come across as the victim, but I needed a support system to lean on. A couple of them caught wind of my situation and offered to help. One of my buddies, Jake, even suggested I take a little trip to clear my head. I decided to take him up on it. I booked a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods, just a couple of hours from our home. I told Lisa I needed some time alone to think and decompress, which was a lie. In reality, it was a tactical retreat. I wanted to gain some perspective and return with a clearer plan. The night before I left, Lisa was particularly attentive, asking me if I was okay and if I needed anything. I could see the concern etched on her face, but I played my part well, feigning indifference. I told her I just needed some space. She nodded, and for a moment I felt a flicker of doubt. Was I doing the right thing? But then I remembered all the hurt, the betrayal, and the shattered trust. As I drove away the next morning, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I was finally taking control of the situation. I spent the weekend reflecting on everything that had happened and mapping out my revenge. I wanted to expose her, to show her that her actions had consequences. I needed to make her understand that she couldn't just poison my life and expect to walk away unscathed. When I returned home, I acted as if nothing had changed. Lisa greeted me with open arms, and I hugged her tightly, savoring the look of relief on her face. Little did she know that I was preparing for the ultimate showdown. The emotional toll of the last few weeks had left me exhausted, but I was more determined than ever. I would make her regret her choices, and I would do it in a way that would ensure she never forgot the price of betrayal. The stage was set, and I was ready to execute my plan. I had a few ideas brewing, ways to turn her own deception against her. It was time to poison her plans and make her realize that actions have consequences, and the repercussions of her betrayal would not vanish quietly. I knew I would need to be strategic and patient, but I was ready for whatever came next. As I settled back into my daily routine, I realized that the real work of revenge required careful planning. I had my evidence tucked away, but I needed to create a situation where Lisa would not only be confronted with the truth but would also have no escape from it. I decided to reach out to my friends for help, specifically Jake and Sarah, who had been there for me since the beginning. During a casual meetup, I laid out my plan. I explained the situation with Lisa and how I had evidence of her infidelity. Their expressions shifted from concern to intrigue as I outlined my strategy. I wanted to set up a dinner with both of them present, along with a few other close friends. I would invite Lisa, and when the moment was right, I would lay everything on the table. It would be a public confrontation, which would leave her nowhere to hide. Jake and Sarah were all in. They helped me coordinate the dinner, selecting a cozy restaurant where we could enjoy a private room. A few days later, I sent out the invitations, telling Lisa it was just a casual get-together with friends. She seemed excited, not suspecting a thing. It was almost laughable how easy it was to manipulate her perception. As the day of the dinner approached, I could feel a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Part of me wondered if I was going too far, but each time those thoughts surfaced, I recalled the pain she had caused. It was time for her to face the reality of her actions. On the night of the dinner, I arrived early to set up the room. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and the scent of savory dishes wafting through the air. As my friends trickled in, we shared laughs and caught up, but my mind was racing. I was on the precipice of turning my life upside down, and I was ready for it. When Lisa finally walked in, she looked radiant in a fitted dress that hugged her curves. I watched her greet everyone, her charming smile in full effect. If only she knew what awaited her. I could feel the tension building in my chest as we all settled down at the table, drinks flowing and the chatter lively. I engaged in small talk, watching her closely, hoping to gauge her mood. As the night progressed, the atmosphere was jovial, but I felt the weight of my intention looming over me. I waited for the right moment, strategically choosing my words to build up to the reveal. I could see Lisa enjoying herself, oblivious to the storm that was brewing beneath the surface. Finally, after a few rounds of laughter and toasts, I decided it was time. I cleared my throat, catching everyone's attention. I just want to take a moment to thank you all for being here tonight. It means a lot to have you all as friends. Everyone raised their glasses, but I could see Lisa's expression shift slightly, sensing the change in energy. I also want to talk about trust and honesty in relationships. I continued, feeling my heart race. It's essential to nurture and protect the bonds we create with the people we love. I looked directly at Lisa, who was now staring at me with a mix of curiosity and concern. I could see her tension rising as I continued, because sometimes those bonds can be shattered by betrayal. The room fell silent, the laughter replaced by an electric tension. Lisa's eyes widened and I could see the panic flickering in her gaze. My friends exchanged glances, unsure of where this was headed. With that, I pulled out my phone and brought up the screenshots of Lisa's messages with Mark. I could feel my pulse quicken as I held the device in the air. I found this on her laptop. I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. It's a conversation between Lisa and her friend. I swiped through the images, revealing line after line of her deceit. The room was enshrouded in disbelief as my friends processed the situation. I looked over at Lisa, whose face had drained of color. Her mouth opened in shock, but no words came out. Lisa, care to explain? I prompted, feeling triumphant but also hollow. I had turned the table, but the reality of the situation was heavy. She opened her mouth to speak, but all that came out was stammering. Greg, she started, but I cut her off. Don't even try to deny it. You've been lying to us, and this is the moment where you have to own up to it. The tension in the room was palpable. I could hear the faint rustle of chairs as my friends shifted uncomfortably. Jake and Sarah looked at each other, their expressions a mix of shock and sympathy. Greg, please, I was going to tell you it was a mistake. She pleaded, but I wasn't having any of it. Save it, Lisa. You've had plenty of chances to come clean, and you chose to betray me instead. My voice was firm, a mixture of anger and sadness coursing through me. At that moment, I realized I wasn't just exposing her infidelity. I was reclaiming my narrative. The emotional weight of the past weeks was starting to lift. I wanted her to feel the impact of her choices, to understand what she had lost. The dinner had transformed from a casual gathering into a confrontation that would linger in everyone's minds. I took a deep breath, ready to let the fallout unfold. Her reaction would determine not just the course of our relationship, but also my path forward. I had successfully poisoned her plans, and now it was time for her to face the consequences of her betrayal. The room was eerily quiet as Lisa sat there, stunned, her face a mixture of shock and disbelief. I could feel the tension radiating from my friends as they processed the betrayal unfolding before them. I had laid everything bare, and now it was her turn to respond, but I was struck by how completely unprepared she seemed. Greg, I swear it meant nothing. She finally stammered, her voice quivering. It was just a fling. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just feeling lost, you know. Work was overwhelming and I was trying to escape. I never thought it would go this far. Escape? I shot back, incredulous. You thought cheating was a way to escape. You didn't even think about how your actions would affect me. This wasn't just a mistake, Lisa. This was a series of choices you made. I could see tears welling in her eyes, and while part of me felt a flicker of sympathy, it was quickly overshadowed by the anger and betrayal I felt. She had taken the most sacred trust of our relationship and shattered it for what? A moment of excitement. I wanted her to feel the weight of her decisions, the consequences of her actions. Everyone here trusted you, Lisa. I continued, my voice steady but filled with emotion. You've not only hurt me, but you've also hurt our friends. You should be ashamed. Her expression shifted slightly as she looked around the table, realizing that the group she had once charmed with her laughter and wit was now witnessing her downfall. The silence was deafening, and I could feel the eyes of my friends on us, filled with a mix of sympathy for me and disappointment for her. "Greg, please don't do this. I love you," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake and I regret it. Can't we work through this? I'll do anything." The desperation in her tone struck a chord within me, but I quickly pushed it aside. How could I trust someone who had so easily thrown away everything we had built? I took a breath, steeling myself for what I needed to say next. "Love isn't about manipulation or deceit, Lisa. You've shown me that you don't value what we have," I said, my voice firm. "I don't want to hear about how you'll change or how you'll fix this. You've already made your choice and it wasn't me." Jake, seated to my left, finally spoke up, breaking the tension. "Lisa, this isn't just about Greg. You've put us all in a difficult position. Trust is hard to rebuild, especially after something like this." His tone was calm but firm, and I appreciated him stepping in. "Right," Sarah added, her eyes narrowed in disappointment. "You've deceived not just your husband but all of us. This isn't something to gloss over or apologize for half-heartedly. It takes real work to earn back trust, and right now, it feels like you're just trying to save face." Lisa's shoulders slumped as she processed their words. The facade of the confident, charming woman I had once known was disintegrating before my eyes, replaced by the reality of her choices. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was the consequence of her actions. She was being stripped of her defenses. "I'm sorry," she repeated, but it sounded more like a reflex than genuine remorse. "I can't believe I did this to you. I've been so selfish." "Selfish is an understatement, Lisa," I retorted, feeling my anger resurface. "You've taken everything for granted, and now you're left with the wreckage of your choices." The weight of the moment hung in the air, and I could see the tears streaming down her cheeks. Deep down, I felt a pang of heartache. This was the woman I had loved, the one I had trusted with my life. But love isn't enough when trust is gone. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I can't pretend that everything is okay, that we can just move on from this. I need time to think about what I want, what's best for me. And right now, I don't think that includes you." Her expression fell, and I knew the truth had hit her hard. I could only imagine how she must have felt in that moment. Alone, exposed, and fully aware of the consequences of her choices. The rest of the dinner passed in a haze. Lisa tried to reach out to me, to touch my arm or make eye contact, but I kept my distance. My friends exchanged concerned glances, unsure of how to navigate the situation. They had come to enjoy a night out, and instead they were witnesses to a painful unraveling. As we wrapped up the dinner, I could barely eat. I felt like I was in a trance, processing everything that had happened. When we finally got up to leave, I turned to Lisa one last time. "I hope you understand that I need space. This isn't something we can just brush under the rug." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and I could see the realization washing over her. I walked out of the restaurant, feeling a mix of relief and grief. I had taken a stand for myself, but the emotional aftermath was heavy. The drive home was filled with silence, my mind racing with everything that had transpired. I had exposed her betrayal, but the road ahead was still unclear. I was faced with tough decisions, and while I had taken a step toward reclaiming my power, I knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey toward healing and self-discovery. I had poisoned her plans, but the real challenge lay in how I would rebuild my own life moving forward. I had to take time to think, to assess my feelings, and to truly ponder what I wanted for my future, whether it included Lisa or not. After that dinner, everything began to shift. I was left with a sense of liberation, mixed with a profound sadness. The confrontation with Lisa had cleared a weight from my shoulders, but the emotional fallout was still fresh. I felt like I was in a strange limbo, where I could finally breathe but was still grappling with the chaos her actions had caused. The days following the dinner were tough. Lisa tried to reach out, sending texts filled with apologies and promises of change. She'd often call, pleading for another chance, but I wasn't ready to engage with her just yet. I needed time to process, heal, and figure out what I truly wanted. I found solace in my friends, especially Jake and Sarah. They offered a supportive ear and encouraged me to focus on myself. They reminded me that I was worthy of love and respect, and that I shouldn't settle for anything less. Their support became a pillar as I started to explore what life could look like beyond the turmoil. I threw myself into my job, working long hours and immersing myself in projects that excited me. I found a surprising amount of joy in my work, rediscovering passions I had neglected during my marriage. I also started to hit the gym regularly, using exercise as an outlet for the pent-up energy and frustration. Each workout became a form of therapy, and I slowly began to regain a sense of control over my life. During this time, I also took the opportunity to reevaluate my goals and dreams. My conversations with friends led to a realization that I had been living a life that was partially dictated by my marriage, what we would do, where we would go, and how we would spend our time. I was waking up to the fact that I had lost a piece of myself in the process. One evening, as I was sitting on my couch, sipping a glass of wine and scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon a post that caught my eye. It was from an old college buddy who was hosting a weekend retreat focused on self-discovery and personal growth. Something about it resonated with me, and I decided on a whim to sign up. It felt like a step in the right direction, a chance to meet new people and explore my identity outside of my relationship with Lisa. As the retreat date approached, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. What if I saw people I knew? What if it became uncomfortable? But I pushed those thoughts aside. I was ready to embrace a new chapter in my life, regardless of how it unfolded. The weekend arrived, and I found myself surrounded by a diverse group of individuals, each with their own stories of heartbreak, growth, and resilience. The activities were structured to encourage vulnerability and self-reflection, and I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't expected. I shared my story, and it felt cathartic to be in a space where people truly understood the complexities of relationships and heartache. One night, while sitting around a fire pit with a few others, we shared our dreams and aspirations. I felt a shift within myself, a sense of belonging that I hadn't experienced in a long time. I realized that while I'd been hurt deeply, this experience was strengthening me. I was learning to embrace my individuality, to trust myself again, and to let go of the fear that had held me back for so long. Returning home from the retreat, I felt rejuvenated. I had a clearer sense of self and a renewed determination to move forward. I still needed to confront Lisa about the future of our relationship, but now I felt empowered to do so without the weight of doubt. When I finally agreed to meet with her, I chose a small cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the clutter of our shared past suffocating us. The day of our meeting, I arrived early, my heart racing with anticipation. I knew this conversation would be pivotal. Lisa walked in, and I could see the emotional toll the last few weeks had taken on her. She looked different, worn, but also determined. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of pity for her, but I quickly reminded myself of the gravity of her betrayal. "Greg," she said softly as we settled into our seats. "Thank you for meeting me. I've been doing a lot of thinking." "Me too," I replied, my voice steady. "I've had time to reflect on everything that happened, and it's helped me see things more clearly." "I know I messed up," she began, her eyes pleading. "I've been seeing a therapist, and I'm working on understanding why I did what I did. I realize how selfish I was, and I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you." I nodded, remembering the hurt and betrayal, but I also felt an unexpected sense of strength. "I appreciate that you're taking responsibility for your actions, but I need you to understand something important. Trust is earned, and right now I don't trust you." Her expression fell, and I could see the realization that she was facing the reality of our situation. "I understand. I don't expect things to go back to normal overnight, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making things right." I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "Lisa, I've spent a lot of time thinking about our relationship. While I care for you, I can't just forgive and forget. I need to focus on rebuilding my life, and right now, that might mean moving on without you." The silence that followed was heavy, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes once more. "I don't want to lose you, Greg. I love you. I know I don't deserve it, but I'll do anything to make this right." "I know you say that, but love isn't enough when trust is broken," I replied gently. "I need to protect my heart, and I need to do what's best for me right now." We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of our conversation hanging in the air. I could see her processing my words, and I felt a mix of sadness and resolve. I was finally standing up for myself, reclaiming my narrative after everything that had happened. "I think it's time for us to part ways," I said softly but firmly. "Not forever, but I need space to heal and figure out what I truly want." Her face crumpled, and I felt a pang of regret for the pain I was causing her, but I knew this was necessary. "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I hope you find happiness, Greg. You deserve it." As we parted ways, I felt a newfound sense of liberation. I had taken the final step toward closure. I had put the poison of her betrayal behind me and stepped into a future where I could rediscover who I was without her. I had learned that I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for, and that the journey of healing was just beginning. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I was reclaiming my life, one step at a time. The weeks that followed my conversation with Lisa were transformative. I felt a sense of relief wash over me as I stepped into this new chapter of my life. The burden of betrayal had begun to fade, and I found solace in establishing my own identity after years of being intertwined with someone else. I threw myself deeper into my work at the office, taking on new projects and pushing myself to learn and grow. This was more than just a distraction. It was a way to reclaim my passion and channel my energy into something productive. I found that my creativity blossomed without the emotional weight of my previous relationship dragging me down. During this time, I also started exploring new hobbies. I took up photography, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. I began attending classes, learning about composition and lighting, and immersing myself in the art of capturing moments. It was liberating to express myself this way, to see the world through a different lens, both literally and metaphorically. As I ventured into new social circles, I made an effort to connect with people who shared my interests. I joined local groups for photography enthusiasts and even participated in a couple of exhibitions. I was amazed by the connections I made and the friendships that blossomed as a result. Each interaction reinforced the idea that life was full of possibilities, and I was hungry for more. I also took the opportunity to reconnect with family and friends. I spent weekends with my parents, sharing dinners and laughter. I ventured out on hiking trips with Jake and Sarah, who had been my rocks throughout the entire ordeal. Each outing was a reminder of the support system I had around me, a reminder that I was never truly alone. Months rolled by, and I noticed a shift within myself. The pain of Lisa's betrayal became less acute, replaced by a gentle acceptance of what had happened. I began to understand that her actions, while deeply hurtful, had propelled me toward personal growth. I learned the importance of self-worth and the necessity of setting boundaries. I was learning to prioritize myself, and in doing so, I was reclaiming my power. One afternoon, while I was out taking photos, I stumbled upon a beautiful park. The golden hour cast a warm glow over everything, and I couldn't resist capturing the moment. As I focused my lens on a cluster of flowers, I felt a sense of peace enveloping me. It was a reminder that even after the darkest storms, there would always be beauty to find. I had learned to appreciate the present, to find joy in simple moments, and to embrace the unknown future that lay ahead. I realized that life was about moving forward, not dwelling on the past. I was carving my own path, and for the first time it felt exhilarating. Then one evening, while attending a photography meetup, I met someone new, Emily. She was passionate and creative, with a warm smile that lit up the room. We struck up a conversation about our favorite photographers and the pieces we had captured. There was an undeniable spark between us, and as we shared our experiences, I felt a sense of openness and connection that I hadn't felt in a long time. We exchanged numbers, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations. Emily was refreshing. She was genuine and kind, and unlike anyone I had ever met before. Our connection deepened as we spent more time together, and for the first time since my separation from Lisa, I felt excited about the prospect of a new relationship. One evening, as we strolled through the park, taking pictures and enjoying each other's company, I realized that I was ready to embrace love again. It felt liberating to open my heart to someone new, to let go of the shadows of the past and allow myself to be vulnerable once more. I had spent so long healing that I almost forgot how beautiful it could be to share my life with someone else. As our relationship blossomed, I found myself reflecting on my journey. I had faced the pain of betrayal, confronted the reality of my marriage, and emerged stronger on the other side. I learned that healing is linear, but it is possible. I discovered the power of forgiveness, and more importantly, the importance of forgiving myself for allowing my trust to be broken. In sharing my story and my journey with Emily, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I had taken the time to understand myself, to grow, and to embrace the lessons life had to offer. I realized that moving forward didn't mean forgetting. It meant carrying those lessons with me and using them to build something beautiful. As I looked ahead, I felt hopeful. Life was full of uncertainties, but I was ready to face whatever came my way. I had learned to trust myself again, to believe in love, and to cherish the beauty that life had to offer. I had emerged from the shadows of betrayal and stepped into a vibrant world of possibility, ready to embrace the journey ahead. In the end, I had poisoned Lisa's plans, but more importantly, I had reclaimed my own. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all.